So I didn't have 1,500 leads in the Sears Tower. I had the Sears Tower. The person at the front desk isn't the decision maker.
Of course.
Right? The person at the front desk tells you to go away.
Well, and not only did you have to do it, but you had to train other people how to do it, which, you know, almost in everything is the best way to get good at something is by training other people to do it, right?
We'll tell ourselves like, okay, this is just a season. Like if I plow through this and I get out on the other side, like it's going to be better.
Yep.
But there's times where you plow through and it's not any better. It's just more of the same.
More of the same thing. That attention to detail is really challenging to, especially from afar, to manage, because you're definitely not going to see it in pictures.
Right.
But in person, yeah, you can totally tell.
Bingo.
Welcome back to the Revamp Podcast. Got an awesome episode for you today. I'm super excited to share it with you guys. If you are new here, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps me to continue having awesome guests. Like today, my guest is hailing from South Carolina, man. Adam Balsinger. And
what a drive.
Man.
Just for this.
Just for this. No other reason, no other purpose.
No pressure whatsoever.
Yup, you flew in on your private jet to come right here to Woodland, PA.
I was promised a certain number of views.
I love it, man. So you are a real estate entrepreneur. Is that fair to say? You've done a lot of different things. You've done some syndication. You're an expert at raising private money. And super grateful to have you here today, man.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and doing a little bit of everything, I think, is a very good way to put it. With my background, I had my hands in a couple different things.
Dude, I love it. And that's what I want to get into. So let's take it back to the beginning, though. How did you first start in the world of real estate?
Oh, boy. So I have always been entrepreneurial. I come from a very blue-collar background. Like my family history is very blue-collar. My parents were the first ones in their families, respectively, to go to college. My father's parents, like when I would visit grandmom and grandpop, it was in a trailer park. So, you know, to say that like I don't have a silver spoon in my mouth and never did would be like a massive understatement.
Yeah.
But so, you know, I got to witness kind of like my family tree being changed by my dad, right? By the fact that he went to college and, you know, worked a white collar job and made decent money, you know, middle income kind of upbringing, middle class upbringing. But there were a lot of things that I got to see, right, through him and his experience in the professional world and the corporate world. And, you know, he was always very open with me about challenges at work and things of that nature. And by the time he retired, he was the CFO of a small retail company. So, you know, C-suite, so knows a lot about what's going on in the business, but a small company. So like not necessarily the salary that one might hope for as a C-suite executive, right? But so there were kind of like, I was very privy to a lot of the politics that would go on in the companies that he was a part of because he was, you know, in a relatively high position.
Right.
And, you know, I grew up in the greater Philadelphia area, but an hour away, and he worked like in the city. And so like he was gone when I woke up in the morning, and he would get home in time for dinner, and then like it was bed, and that was that. Right. So like there were a lot of things that I saw and I knew about and whatnot that I didn't want for my own life. And so, you know, I did the college thing just because like that was what you did. You did the college thing. And I never really knew what I wanted to do. And I was always kind of jealous of the kid in high school that was like, I'm going to be a whatever. It was going to be a firefighter or police officer or astronaut or whatever. Because I was always kind of like, well, I just like want to make a lot of money and like do whatever I want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wound up doing a sales job. My first job out of college was door-to-door sales.
Okay.
Commission-based, cold calling, impulse. Hi, I'm here on behalf of Verizon. I'm following up on the line work that was done in the neighborhood. Do you still have Verizon, or are you still with Comcast, right? Like, I still have it I still know the pitch.
Still know the script.
This was when I graduated in 06. So this was like, literally summer of 06.
Okay. And what did you go to college for?
Marketing.
Okay.
Well, it started as business, and really like I've started to go down the finance route, and I did an internship or two in like accounting and in finance, and I absolutely hated it. I was always good with math and science. Like those were my two best subjects, but dude, like at the internship,
just
trying
not
to stay
wired
awake,
for
it's
it.
just so boring if you're
Yeah.
not like a spreadsheet, sit at the computer all day kind of person.
Yep.
And I found out very quickly that was not me and what I wanted for myself. And so, the thing that sparked my interest about the door-to-door sale thing was the way that it was presented was like the woman that I worked for, the company that I worked for, she started knocking doors too. And it was like she learned the sales, and then she learned how to teach other people and recruit to do the sales and build a team. And then boom, she winds up with her own company representing Verizon, doing essentially the same thing. Little bit of multi-level marketing vibes to it, but like not really, right? So anyway, that's what I did when I first got out of college.
Okay.
And so the like entrepreneur mindset and all the good things that go along with being an entrepreneur, like that was kind of like constantly messaging, right?
Yep.
Coming, because it's this training program. And quite frankly, like the ownership ability to run your own team was the carrot that was dangled to get you to continue to go out and eat shit all day and get 100 no's and doors slammed in your face and get a real job, you piece of shit, like all that stuff, right?
That happens? People say that?
Yeah, they're very brutal. Although doing acquisitions in real estate is worse for the negative stuff that you hear than just knocking on somebody's door about their phone and internet service. Like I never had somebody threaten to rape my sister.
Holy crap, man. That's a good one.
But when you're doing cold calling and doing SMS texts with distressed real estate, like you get some of that every once in a while. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
at the point. So, I wound up like I did the field thing. I did the sales. I learned how to do the sales. I learned how to build a team. This was all very, 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 very difficult for me. Like I was terrible at the sales.
So you weren't like a natural.
No. I would describe my, like, I wouldn't say necessarily a negative mindset, but like pessimistic for sure, was kind of like my mind at the time. And a lot of fault finding, I think, I was very good at finding fault and
What
blaming.
do you mean by that?
Like blaming other people for things instead of taking accountability, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so there was a lot that I needed to get better at. I've typically been very direct. I don't mince words. And so trying to get yeses at the door was a bit of a challenge. And so it really took me a lot of time and effort to get good at the sales, which wound up making me a pretty good trainer because I was like literally so bad at the sales at first. And I had to get good at so many parts of it that it became pretty easy for me to teach somebody to do it because like
you knew all the
if you didn't suck as bad as I did, like you were already, in a good place to get started. But so, the thing that had sparked my interest in the entrepreneur life at that point was the freedom and, the ability to control my own destiny. My dad made good money by the end of his career, but not being there in the morning to be with your family and missing a lot of the evening because like you're driving to and from work. What's the point of making all the money if you're never home to enjoy it and you're working all the time?
Did that kind of strike you even from a young age? Like when you were a kid, before you even went to college, like did you kind of know like I want to have more time freedom than what my dad did?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, like so I played sports and I wasn't necessarily really good at any of them, but I played them. And so I remember playing baseball as a kid at, like summer league games and stuff. My dad would always make it a point to try to get there. There was a lot of times that he wasn't able to be there. And But he was there, I would say, probably 75% of the time.
Okay.
But because he was always so busy with work, like he would sit off on the side by himself with like his computer or his spreadsheets or whatever. And so he's like working while he's there. And so like I always appreciated the fact that he made it a point and prioritized being there. But most of the other kids, like their parents were there. They weren't working. Like they were all hanging out, like being the parents together, chit-chatting. And it was like my dad was.
It seemed like he was there, but he wasn't really there.
Do that, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I definitely noticed those things. And I also had friends who I wound up switching schools. I went from public to private from in between 10th and 11th because I was like a hellraiser and I was always in trouble. And one of my really good friends, his dad almost never was there. So, and his family made way more money than my family did. You go to private school and you can be put into a totally different, like, it's a totally different setting with people from totally different backgrounds, right? And so when I went to private school, it was like my dad was there and more than my buddy's dad was, who made way more money. And so you start thinking about some of these things of like, well, wait a second, they're making all this, they have all this extra stuff. They make more money than we do, but then like he's never around.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't sound great. That doesn't seem good. And so it had kind of planted some of those seeds earlier, I think, than a lot of people maybe think about.
That makes a lot of sense, man. Makes a lot of sense.
So, you know, after like 2.5 years probably of the field, I finally got to the point that I was promoted, you know, earned my stripes, whatever, got my own client and was able to start my own business. I moved all over the place, man, with that thing. From Philly to Westchester County in New York, so just above New York City. So I'd be knocking doors in like Yonkers and Mount Vernon, which is where like Jadakiss is from, you know.
Good landmark.
And there'd be women in Mount Vernon at like 5:15 in February, like, you need to go away. What are you doing here? Like, you're going to get shot. Like, this is not safe for you to be in this neighborhood at nighttime. Like, you're out of your mind. To then being in, like, Hillary Clinton and Jay-Z and Beyonce's neighborhood in, like, Scarsdale. So really? I'd be in, like, the hood one day, and then the next week I'd be in these multi-million-dollar neighborhoods. Then moved to Detroit, moved to Chicago. I represented Verizon. I represented AT&T. I represented Staples doing office supplies. Culligan doing water
all kind of at the
filtration
same
systems.
time?
Kind of one right after the other.
Okay, got it.
So I was doing residential when I was doing Verizon and AT&T. And then when I moved to Chicago, I switched out of residential to business. And I represented, in a period of 3 years, I represented Staples. Quill was actually, it's their warehouse subsidiary. So I was selling Quill to small and medium-sized businesses. I did water filtration systems with Culligan. So we would walk in and we'd be trying to sell them the triple filtered water system instead of the jugs that people carry in, right? That was my favorite one because it was kind of fun. T-Mobile, and then also electricity, because electric was deregulated in Chicago. So businesses could choose who they were getting their electric supply from.
And this was predominantly focused around still, even when you went B2B, it was still going door to door to businesses. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yep. Okay. Cold calling. Nobody asked us to come in. Nobody set an appointment. It was walking off the street and try to get to the decision maker.
I love it.
So, you know, like so many just funny things when like we would teach people, we would call it the UPS walk when we switched to business, because the person at the front desk isn't the decision maker.
Of course.
Right? The person at the front desk tells you to go away.
Just the gatekeeper.
They're the gatekeeper. And so it was like, okay, you have two choices when you enter this business. Do you engage with the gatekeeper because now your close on the gatekeeper is to get you to the decision maker? Or you just walk straight the fuck past them, pretend like they're not even there and act like you belong there. And if you just walk right past them and you walk in with purpose, and you don't seem like you're wandering around or looking around or look lost, like they won't even say anything. You just walk right in and we're like, well, okay, well, whose door do I go to? And we go, I don't know, pick the one in the back. It's usually the one in the back. Just
the fanciest looking door, right?
Walk right the hell past the first person to go. And so like, there was just little things that you had to learn that were constantly pushing you outside of your comfort zone in that kind of sales world that I was living in. But long story short, man, like building a team of people that are willing to go door to door cold calling on 100% commission is a challenge,
right?
To say the least. Like you're constantly battling turnover. When I wound up running my business, the vast majority, the most time consuming thing I did on a day-to-day basis was recruiting. Because
totally understand.
You're constantly replacing people.
Yep. That makes sense.
You know, I mean, look, man, there's like, it takes a toll after a while, especially when some of your good people that you really like wind up not working out the way that you really want them to, right? Yep. So here I am, like mid to late 20s, killing myself, working, 6 and 7 days a week. I'm moving all over the country, so it's not like I have like friends or a network outside of the people that I've met through work.
Right.
So even when I'm not working, I'm hanging out with the people that work for me, and I'm supposed to be like the example, right? So you're like, I'm always on, and I just got bored and tired of it after a while, and it wasn't generating the income that I had really anticipated. And I think when you get into those positions as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we're very optimistic. And we'll tell ourselves like, okay, this is just a season. Like if I plow through this and I get out on the other side, like it's going to be better.
Yep.
But there's times where you plow through and it's not any better. It's just more of the same.
More of the same thing. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so, after a while, decided that, I didn't want to do that anymore, shut that business down. And, dude, that was a really kind of aimless part of my life for a few years because I had spent and put so much into this sales business. I mean, dude, like I missed my grandmom's funeral. Like I missed my cousin's wedding. Like there were major sacrifices that were being made because I lived over here in Chicago, and I can't just hop on a plane and leave my business to come here. And it's like, your grandmother died. Like it would, I know, but it's on a Tuesday, and like I have to run a sales meeting, like crazy stuff. But so,
what was the size of the sales team like, I guess, at the height of everything?
35 people.
That's a lot, man.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot.
Traipsing around. We were the number one vendor, right? So we weren't the only outsourced sales team that these companies were hiring, right? They had sales teams all over the country. But when I was representing the energy supplier, like that was when we really were cranking.
Gotcha.
And I was the number one vendor in the country for a year and a half, something like that. And really one of the issues became that I was splitting the Chicago territory with two other businesses. Two other guys just like me had their own teams. And my third of the Chicagoland area included downtown.
Okay.
And the way that they based the distribution of the territories was on number of businesses within that geographical area. Well, Drew, the Sears Tower has a lot of businesses in it.
Yeah, man.
And they're not individually able to choose their electric. So I didn't have 1,500 leads in the Sears Tower. I had the Sears Tower.
Wow.
Like, and they're not taking anybody walking in off the street.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was real. So we wound up, and this was really my fault. Like, I should have never allowed my team to get to 35 people. I should have limited the number of people that I had in that territory to like 15 or 20. And then when I recruit new people, instead of just, yeah, go ahead, here's more territory, I should have been replacing the bottom performers with fresh blood. Because what wound up happening was we burned through our territory too fast when we had 30-some people, and we'd be going back to businesses a month and a half later with like your brand new sales rep that you're all excited about their potential. And they're like, you were just here 5 weeks ago. It was Nicole. Here's the paperwork I ripped up, right? And so, you know, we had a ton of turnover, and I was going to the client and trying to be like, look, I need more territory. Like, here's this other vendor's results. Here's this other vendor's results. Here's mine. Like, give me some of their territory. Yeah. And there was kind of some politics involved.
It's always some politics.
So that didn't really happen. And I wasn't happy about that, because one of the big things I liked about the idea of that business model to begin with was everything was performance-based.
For sure, man.
Well, hey, if this is performance-based, like, why the fuck am I trying to...
Why am I limited on
why am I like begging for more territory when I've been supporting this other vendor for 3 months by sending them my sales reps to operate out of their office? Well, just send them more of your people. No, give me their territory.
Yeah, like, how's that make sense?
Right? So anyway, shut it down. And dude, like, when you put that amount of time and effort into growing something, and you sacrifice and you move and you commit X amount, like, it's like a part of you that dies.
Absolutely,
almost,
man.
Right? It's almost like you're losing. It's like you're losing a pet or a child or something, right?
Yep.
So, you know, I was kind of like an amoeba, man, for like a year or two, floating, just trying to figure out, like, what the hell am I going to do with myself now? Because I was so convinced that this was the path.
That was it. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. And all throughout that time, I have to imagine you were still making good money, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not what you wanted, but it was good money, man.
For a 25-year-old kid running around Chicago, like, I was making pretty good money with 30 people in my office.
Hell yeah.
But so then, you know, I picked up some sales jobs here and there just because it was easy to get a sales job with my background. Like, I got really good with people and with sales just by knocking doors, that many doors a day, 5-6 days a week for years and years and years. When I was doing resi door to door, we would hit 80 doors a day to get
per sales rep
to get 2 yeses.
Okay.
And we would hit those 80 doors 3 times a day.
Wow.
So we would get to the office, we'd do like the sales meeting, the rah-rah, right? Like Wolf of Wall Street, rah-rah type meeting from like 10 until 12. At noon, you dip out to the field. You're in the field from 1 until like 8 at night, back to the office at like 8:30, settle up, put numbers in, and then you're out.
Okay.
But so, you know, that's a lot of no's.
Man.
That's a lot of people to talk to a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I was forced to get really good. Like, I'm really good at going places and making friends because I had to do it.
Well, and not only did you have to do it, but you had to train other people how to do it, which, you know, almost in everything is the best way to get good at something is by training other people to do it, right?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm trying to figure out what the heck my next move is, and I'm renting a place with 2 friends in Chicago at the time, and we were renting, like, we were looking all over the place, and we found this awesome spot. It had been a big single family house that somebody had just bought and converted into a quad.
Okay.
And to illustrate how big this house must have been, the quad, each of the 4 units were 3-bed, 2-bath, bi-level.
No crap.
So this is a big house. This is probably like a 5,000 square foot house, something like that.
Yep.
And so I'm just like sitting there thinking more and more, how much money is this guy making on this property? Because our rent was $2,100. And so I'm like, how much could he have bought this for? How much? I don't understand. How does this thing work? And so I wound up reaching out to the property manager and was like, hey, can you coordinate a lunch or a breakfast or a cup of coffee meeting or something like that with the owner of the property? And so
interesting request.
So yeah, right. How often does that happen?
How often does a tenant ask that?
So with the help of the property manager, like I get this coffee meeting set up with the owner of the building that I'm renting a unit out of. And, I'm like trying to ask him these questions, and dude, this must be like 2012 that this was happening.
Okay.
I want to say, man, that the vast majority was like right over my head, but I left there thinking, what a great business idea.
Yeah.
Or what a great path, or what a great way to create and build a living and a life for yourself through doing what this guy was doing. And so basically, now 11 years in real estate full time, I know that what this guy was doing was he's a burr investor.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Buying distressed, creating as many units as he could, highest and best use, and then renting it out and refinancing it. Mm-hmm. Which, funny enough, is now kind of where I've settled after 11 years of trying this and trying that and doing this and doing that and building the team of the wholesaling. And anyway, that's where I am now, is really kind of right back to full circle moment, I guess, right? I don't think I even put that together until just now.
That's awesome.
That I'm actually now doing what that guy was doing that I had taken out to lunch all those years ago.
That's so cool, man. And it's I'm sure at that time, but when you sat down with him and had coffee, was that in that year period after you kind of shut everything down and you were just kind of
I was
floating
still trying
around?
to figure out what the hell I'm going to do.
Well, that probably seems so sexy for so many reasons. It's tangible asset, not loads of team and structure and systems and process and offices and all this. It's just I buy a freaking building and people pay me money.
Yep. And I do it once and
it pays me forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, super appealing at the time. At that time, I'm basically living off of income that I'm making in these different kind of sales jobs. And then also the bit of a nest egg that I'd built up through having the company for all those couple of years. So, and it was all so big in my mind and this big thing of how do you even do that? So I didn't really do anything with that for a while. I wound up moving back to Pennsylvania after a little while. I think I was probably in Chicago for about a year or two after I'd shut everything down. And after a while, I'm like, why am I here? I moved to Chicago for the business.
Right.
Chicago's a cool city. I really it's my favorite city in the country by far.
Interesting.
Chicago's awesome. I mean, the weather blows.
Yeah. So what do you love about it?
The people, there's a ton of things to do. The prices are reasonable. It's got all, in my mind, Chicago has all the good stuff that Manhattan and New York City have without a lot of the negative. People are nicer than they are in New York. Prices are more reasonable they are in New York, but you still have all of the things to do. You have all the culture. You have all the different kinds of cuisines. You have all the different neighborhoods that you can hit with all the different personality types to it, So cool place for sure. But dude, the weather, there's only 4 good months a year in Chicago. The rest of the weather sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there's the lake is right there. So you can actually I'd be at the beach every weekend in Chicago. It's just a lake beach instead of an ocean beach. But when you're partying your face off and
you're
drinking the whole time
mid-20s,
anyway,
right?
Who cares?
Hell
right?
yeah.
But so I moved back to Pennsylvania. I was living with my parents for a little while. Was picked up another sales job. And dude, just in the car, driving back and forth. I was selling software at the time.
Okay.
I had done some recruiting and headhunting for a little while when I was still in Chicago. And I linked up with Bullhorn, which is a ATS or CRM, right, for headhunting companies.
Okay.
So I was selling the headhunting CRM software to the headhunting companies.
Got it.
And my territory was Philly and North Jersey. So I was doing a lot of windshield time back and forth. And dude, I just kept hearing these like learn how to flip houses commercials on the radio. And wound up going to one or two or a couple. And eventually, like, they're all come-ons, you know? And there's still plenty of people that operate their education businesses in a similar way where they advertise market, they get you to this event that's like a 2-day thing, and then they don't really tell you anything at the 2 days.
Hard close, baby.
Yeah, the temperature's like 60 degrees in the room. It's cold as shit. And it's all this like, this is what you can do after you figure all this out. Anyway,
right.
So I did the free thing, and I think I probably did one or two. I probably did 2 or 3 of those before I actually like paid the money to go to the next thing. And of course, the next thing, you don't learn anything at the next thing either. That's just another upsell to like the big program. But so I wound up buying into Armando Montalongo's bus tour. He was like one of the first house flipper TV show people, Armando, way back when. And I actually think I think there was a class action lawsuit against him from a bunch of his students.
Really?
You know, I'm not part of that like circle anymore. It was 11, 12 years ago I did that program. But that's really what kind of got me finally into the game, where I learned what the hell I needed to do in order to be a real estate investor. And then after that, it was then, okay, here we go. And it was just kind of following the loose system that he taught at that bus tour event.
So what was that like? So you said you went to the first thing, didn't learn anything, upsell to second thing. You go to second thing. Was the second thing also like a 1 or 2 day event as well? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that upsold you into the final like master plan that was, how much was it at the time?
I think it was $25,000.
$25,000 bucks. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then so you get in that program, and what was that education journey like?
So it was a weekend long event, like down in Texas, I think is where it was. And, you know, it's a lot of concept and theory in the like conference room. And then you go, I believe I think it was two of the days over the weekend that we went out and like literally got in buses and went around and like looked at some different properties, looked at like, I think we looked at one active renovation. We looked at like one that was done and on the market for sale. And then we looked at like 2 or 3 like subject properties, potential deals.
Got it.
And then, you know, they kind of walk you through how to determine your rehab budget, which for me, coming back here to Philly was totally useless because they're in Dallas and the homes are built in 1950 and 1960 and 1970.
Style,
it's a totally different construction style. And then I moved back here and everything's built in 1900 and they're all row homes, you know? So most of the actual, if you're doing an HVAC system, figure X, like that shit was all totally useless for the most part. But the way that you go about figuring out the numbers in your own market that they talk about there was very easy to then just implement.
Adapt to whatever market.
You just slightly adjust and pivot based on your, you know, market differences, and then you're kind of off to the races.
Yep.
But so, yeah, man. So that was the first thing that kind of got me started. Made some connections through that conference and through that event, and came back here to Philly and was looking for deals around the Philly area, and, you know, was having a ton of difficulty finding things. I put some offers in on some things, wound up having to pull out of some things because I was learning about some of these differences in renovation costs and whatnot. You know, like here I'm looking for cosmetic rehabs, and it's not until I got 2, 3, 4, 5 houses and talked to 17 different actual real estate investors that are actually doing deals here that they're like, you're going to have a really hard time in the city of Philadelphia finding a cosmetic renovation.
Right.
Right. And for those that don't know, anybody listening, like when a house is that old, you're probably not able to do a cosmetic renovation.
Yep.
And like when you're passing the property down from great grandmom to grandparents to parents to then the kids, like there's no inspections that were done during those transactions. And, you know, Johnny Homemaker or Johnny Do-It-Yourself DIY guy is doing most of the work. And so like, you don't know what the fuck you're dealing with.
Yep.
So I'm like trying to figure out some of these differences in this market versus what I was taught. And I wound up just some of the connections that I had made were in Atlanta. And I actually did my first fix and flip in Atlanta from Philly.
No shit.
And it just happened to work out that way.
Really?
I had made a connection with a realtor in the Atlanta market that like I'm still tight with, Lorraine. And she had met a wholesaler or two. And this is back when wholesalers were like the scum of the earth. Right. Nobody wanted to be a wholesaler back in like 2014. It's been more recent that people want to be wholesalers.
Yeah.
You know, back then, like wholesalers didn't like, you got $5,000 and you were fucking lucky if you're getting $5,000, right? Like, it's really interesting to see how
it's evolved. Yeah.
Those roles and perception of the role and the place in the deal have grown and evolved over time. I can only imagine how somebody like Ron LeGrand looks at like real estate investing right now after being in it for like 50 years to think like, oh my God, like my students 30 years ago were buying cassette tapes.
Right.
From me and listening to them in the car.
Yep.
Like, what a weird, different way of doing things.
For sure.
So yeah, man, I wound up doing 4 flips in Atlanta. Okay. Over like a 1.5-year time period as I was kind of getting things going here.
That sounds really hard. You know, the first rehab project you do, you're not even there. Like, were you flying down? You never even went?
The agent that had the relationship with the wholesaler that had connected the two of us, she wound up, I actually essentially kind of hired her to be my boots on the ground.
Got it.
So instead of me going and doing the walkthrough each week and check in, you know, per the draw request from the contractor, like she would wind up doing that stuff for me. And, you know, it worked to moderate degrees of success. The first house that we did, we had a hell of a time selling it. You know, renovation done up, and it was up on the market for probably 6 or 9 months in like a really hot area of Atlanta. And I wound up flew down, like something's wrong. What's going on? Why is this thing not moving? And, you know, come to realize that there were things that had been kind of repainted, finishes that were not to the level of quality that they should have been based on the price point that we were shooting for. And in my mind at the time, it was like, boots on the ground. How did you not like notice this?
Right.
How did you not call this out? And it might sound, but so like to try to illustrate this, like, you know, we've got this renovated house in Old Fourth Ward, super hot area, a lot of new construction, a lot of people buying tiny little bungalows, popping the top, building a second story on and sell, right? So like awesome, super modern shit that we're competing against. And we had like all the original solid wood doors inside that if they're clean, look awesome. But ours looked like they'd been painted 1,000 times since the fucking place was built.
Yep. So
you could see like paint drip marks on the doors, on the windows. And it's like, yo, we're at the top of the market here.
Right.
Like what are we doing? We can't, like, this looks like this belongs in a rental property.
Yep.
In like a bad neighborhood.
Yep.
And we're trying to get top dog. So like little things like that.
Attention to detail is really challenging to, especially from afar, to manage, because you're definitely not going to see it in pictures.
Right.
But in person, yeah, you can totally tell.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Right. So we'd get a picture like, okay, cool, that looks great. But then you see it up close and in person. Is that oh no, that's like 3 coats under our paint, right? And then we had done, but really the straw that broke the camel's back for deals in Atlanta was we were doing a house in Decatur by Emory University, which is like the Ivy League of the South.
Okay.
Sorry if there's any Emory listeners, Emory alumni out there. But so we added on to the back of the home, and it was a disaster. Like, it was a total disaster. The contractor wound up bailing on us, just dipped, like couldn't get him on the phone anymore. House had been in a historic area, like a historic neighborhood, and he did not put the right windows in for replacement windows. So
it was protected by the Historic Society. Or
so he botched the actual addition and didn't put the correct amount of supports and pillars to support this new section of the home off the rear, and then put the wrong windows in. So we had to like go back, undo a bunch of the actual addition, do it the correct way with a new contractor. Get the city's approval on all that stuff. And dude, like sometimes cities can be like, if you do something wrong and you get on their shit list, like they make things hard.
Oh yeah.
On
Intentionally at that point. Yep.
So, and that was like that experience. That was our 4th house, I think, that we did down there. And it was just like, you know what? By then, I had started to get some traction up here, had figured out some of those differences, and so we were buying deals up here. And so it was like, what's the point in being down there anymore? Yeah. Like, it's just kind of a distraction. So kind of went all in on doing flips in the greater Philadelphia area. I never, honestly, man, did the volume that I wanted to do. You know, at most, we probably did like 6 houses in a year.
Okay.
And so I always wanted to do more and do more and do more. And I was having difficulty finding enough deals that I thought were good enough deals to justify. And so I decided that I was going to spend some money to learn how to do direct to seller marketing. And so I wound up buying a wholesaler course and joining like a wholesaler guru program, not because I wanted to wholesale, but because I wanted to learn the direct to seller marketing aspect of it.
Fully understand.
And wound up, you know, doing some direct to seller marketing with the intent to fill my own pipeline. Got some things, some leads that came in that I just trashed. And after a while, I'm like, there's all these other people on the internet wholesaling these deals. Like, oh, fuck it. I'll just see if I can turn it into a couple bucks.
Absolutely, man.
And did, and then wound up deciding like, well, wait a second. I hate managing the contractors to begin with. Like, I feel like I'm like trying to force them to honor their like contract that we signed. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't want to convince somebody to honor a deal that we already agreed to. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yep.
And so I hated dealing with contractors. So I was like, okay, wait a second. I can eliminate my least favorite part of the real estate business right now. I can not have to raise all this money every time I have a new deal, and I can get paid faster. Mm-hmm. Like, wait a second. This is like, did the clouds like just part? You know, like what's going on? So I transitioned my business, and I kind of wound down the flips that I had going on and transitioned to wholesaling, and I wholesaled for several years. But I think sometimes we get into something with one idea in mind, and we're just doing, and we're kind of like we're still close to that, like what we started out pursuing, but one pivot here, one pivot there, one pivot here, a few little tweaks, and you look at where you are 4 or 5 years down the road and you're like, wait a second, I wanted to be here and I only made 3 little pivots. Like, how the fuck am I over here? Like, this isn't where I wanted to be. Because the thing that got me into real estate was not like, I want to build this transactional machine that I then have to constantly like steer and captain this machine.
You wanted freedom.
I wanted freedom.
From when you were a kid.
I wasn't trying to create this big business that's doing all these deals. Like, how did that even happen? And so...
And that's a trap that so many people fall into.
We all get in it. We all get in it, I think.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had been able to acquire a couple rental properties went from my fix and flips and wholesaling days. And really, like, that was always what I wanted to do. And it was just like, well, this is taking too long to do it the way that we're doing it, which was essentially like, okay, make money from the transactional flips and the wholesales
and put
save
the money
enough of it up and then
go
be your own down payment, right? Sounds great, but it's slow. And so I decided to transition to multifamily syndication because you're buying apartment complexes instead of buying a single family house that I'm renting out to one person. Like, well, I want to do the buy and hold strategy. That's where I really want to be. But I don't want it to take me 30 years to be able to retire buying onesie twosie. Like, it's going to take me forever. And so I transitioned over to syndication, which wound up being another just big distraction that went further away from where I really wanted to go. Because the reality with syndication, while the numbers are bigger when you're buying deals and, you know, it sounds cool to do a $17 million deal and all this stuff. Like, most syndicators are selling the deal when they're done. They're not burring big assets.
They're essentially flipping them.
It's a big ass fix and flip is really all that it is. The difference though is that because there's 130 units, I'm renovating 10 at a time while 120 units are generating income, right? So you have some cash flow coming in as you're doing the actual flip, right? But then you exit. And so you still need to do volume. And so it was like, well, wait a second. Like, well, what the hell? I've done 10 deals. We have $85 million in real estate that we've closed, but I've turned over 3 of the 10 already. And now I need to backfill I need to replace those with something else. And so it was still just more of the hamster wheel.
You're stuck in that
hamster wheel. It felt like, right? And so, you know, around 2022, actually, no, towards the end of 2022, I kind of made the decision that I was really not liking the syndication life. The market had been getting really, really competitive. 2020, 2021, 2022.
COVID probably had a big impact, right?
Yeah. I mean, I dropped over 50 grand to learn syndication. Started the education down that path in 2017. Took me 2 years to get my first deal. So closed the first deal in 2019 and then 19, 20, 21, 22, bought 10 deals during that time frame. But dude, like, the crazy thing, I think, and something that anybody that's interested in getting into real estate needs to be conscious of right now is like the rise of the guru and the rise of the real estate influencer totally fucks with the normal supply demand that you would be facing or seeing within a sector. Right? So what are all the gurus teaching now? What do you see the majority of them?
Well, a lot of it is still wholesale, but maybe that's my bias because that's the space that I'm still kind of in. But
I think you're pretty spot on.
Wholesale is big, but yeah, no, I know that syndication was really big 5 years ago too.
Syndicator influencers out there now too. So like it seems to me, and then short-term rentals are like the next kind of big one, right?
Self-storage.
What are some of the hottest sectors in real estate? they're hot because that's where everybody's coming from with their new education, and they're idiots because they're brand new.
That's right.
They don't know what they don't know yet.
That's right.
And so you have all these people that are like unknowingly marks for the guru influencer that's just worried about a cash grab.
Yeah.
And they get them all full of excitement and piss and vinegar that like they're going to go out and conquer the world. And then they go into this market where like deals just don't make sense. Mm-hmm. Dude, when I learned, so syndication, I did RE Mentor through a guy named Dave Lindahl in Boston.
Okay.
And he used to teach something that he called the Holy Trinity. You wanted a 12% cash on cash return, an 8% cap rate, and I think a 1.6 DSCR. And that was the three like criteria that a deal had to hit in order for it to be a deal that Dave would consider to be a good deal.
Got it.
The reason it took me 2 years, Drew, to get a deal was because those numbers don't exist in today's market. So Dave took what he was doing in like 2010, 2012, 2015, whatever, and then was just continuing to coach it for however long he could get people to pay him. Now, look, like whichever camera, I'm not talking crap. I learned a ton. I wouldn't be where I am today had I not bought into all these different programs. Like I learned a ton of stuff.
For sure.
And for me, I think the financial monetary commitment was probably necessary because had there not been the big dollar amount attached to that information, when shit got hard, I probably there's a good chance that I would have just cut bait and dipped.
Absolutely.
But when you have 30, 40, 50 grand that you spent on something
and time of your life,
you're like, well, I'm going to make this
I
work.
have to make it
I'm
work.
Die trying.
Yep. Fully understand.
This is literally it.
Yep.
But so, I think that just people need to be really careful getting into real estate now because the access to the information that again, Carlton Sheets or whatever, some of these old timers were it was harder to get that information.
Right.
And
now
so you just
everywhere.
had fewer people there were fewer people that were real estate investors.
Yep.
Now there's a ton of real estate investors out there because you can go to YouTube and find the information for free.
Exactly right.
And so I think newer real estate investors today need to spend more time than probably at any other point in real estate investing history to really survey the market that they want to be active in to figure out where is the real opportunity at? Because, dude, would you advise anybody at the end? What is today's date? May. Anyway, I don't think we're supposed to say dates on.
It's okay.
But
it's May of 25.
We're Q2 2025,
yep.
Right? Would you advise a new real estate investor today to get into wholesaling?
That's a great question. I think it does depend. I see where you're headed, but I think it depends on the person and where they're at today and what they want to do and everything.
I would agree.
I think it's a great way to make an entry into real estate and make some, money to be able to figure out what your next pivot is and everything. And it's a great way. It can be low cost barrier to entry. I don't think it's sustainable that way. And that's where a lot of people get fucked up. They think I can do $100,000 a month with only spending $200 a month in marketing. And that's not real.
Right.
But they are told that, when they come into the world by their guru. So I think that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that really I've learned multiple times now, I think that I've hurt myself because I pivoted from fix and flip to wholesale to syndication back to buy and hold, right? I would have a much larger portfolio had I just started in one of those and probably stuck with it, right?
Yeah.
So I am I think hyper conscious of that kind of thing when I'm thinking about the next move, right? Because I don't want to have to pivot a bunch of times because there are differences in this strategy versus that strategy versus this strategy versus that strategy.
For sure.
And the people that are involved in it's different people that are involved in those different strategies, right? So one of the great things and one of the bigger reasons that I wanted to come up here today from South Carolina is because I am so focused on the buy and hold strategy in this market as one of my core pillars moving forward for my real estate business. And I let a lot of those relationships kind of fizzle and go by the wayside when I was out chasing 100-unit apartment complexes.
Right.
And so like the breakfast meeting this morning was great because I have now met another 2 guys that sound like they are like good volume wholesalers that I can now have deals being sent to me through, because I just haven't spent the time cultivating those wholesaler relationships because I was just I was just doing a different thing.
Yep.
Right. Yep. But so I'm really excited about, I think like we're at a point where real estate's kind of weird.
I think the entire
Inflation,
economy,
the economy,
is
the
weird,
whole world
man.
is weird, right? AI, like there's all these changes that are coming. But so I think there's going to be a lot of really great opportunity for people moving forward. I just think that it might be different opportunity than what people have been kind of
Doing
traditionally used to.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So taking a step back real quick. So you said that you went to like your first event to learn about syndication for big deals. And then it took about 2 years to get your first deal after that.
Yep.
Were you still wholesaling during that time period, or what were you doing for active income at that point?
Yeah. So for a while, I had the wholesaling and the syndication going at the same time.
Okay.
Which was challenging to say the least.
What was the wholesale operation like? Because I have to imagine that with your skills and your personality and your history of previously growing a massive sales organization, that had to translate and correlate to the world of wholesaling really well, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think. So I have a business partner that is local here in Philly. He actually had done, so he runs an HVAC business, has his own HVAC company, and he had done some of my HVAC work for me as I was flipping houses. So I had hired him to be my HVAC contractor.
Got it.
And I had met him at like the Armando bus tour, local Philly, whatever group, right? And so he was working on doing his own flips. I think he did one. He was having difficulty finding deals, making numbers work, so on and so forth. I kind of had already shared that I was having trouble doing the volume I wanted to do. So when I bought into that wholesaling program, I bought into it with Larry, who is now my business partner, because the initial concept was we're going to split the marketing costs, and then you'll take deal 1, I'll take deal 2, 3, right? Or however we were going to work that out. We would just kind of share in the leads, and we would feed our own pipeline, essentially. And so during all that time, I moved to Charlotte back in 2017.
Okay.
So that was really when we started to kind of get some traction and really started to try to scale this wholesaling thing. And so Larry really wound up being more of the sales because he was going on the appointments. And so like
because the wholesaling was in Philly.
Because it was in
even
Philly
though you were in
only,
Charlotte.
right?
Okay,
So because we had already built, we had started in Philly. We knew the Philly market. We had the connections.
Yep.
We had the MLS access. Like we knew the areas where none of that was present in Charlotte. And so it was like, all right, well, I could do all that from scratch while I'm still trying to grow this syndication thing, or like, let's just keep this going. Because I think we always think that things are easier than they're going to be.
Always.
And so I think Larry and I both thought like, oh, well, after a year or two, like we'll have this thing on kind of autopilot and we'll be able to, it'll just spit off some cash for us and we can keep that going and we can grow it if we want to or not or whatever. And so that I think that was really kind of the intent.
Which is also what the gurus kind of put in your head too,
Right.
It's
Right.
like, you can definitely get this on autopilot.
Right. No, not a chance.
Yeah.
So I was really more of like the marionette puppet, like, controlling the puppet, so to speak. And Larry was more like the sales lead, sales manager, doing trainings and things of that nature for the team.
Got it.
But so, we were doing we started out with direct marketing, direct to seller, direct mail, was what we started out with. And then we incorporated bandit signs, and then we started doing cold calling.
Okay.
And by the end, everybody had jumped on the SMS text. And so we were doing that. So let me think. By the time we were done, right before we wrapped, we had 2 people in acquisitions. We had 1 person in dispositions, and the syndication was really starting to kind of like get some steam and requiring more time and effort from me. So we had actually hired an ops manager who was just handling the operation of everything. And that did not work.
Yeah.
It looked like it was working for a while, and then like a year down the line, we're like, whoa, we're spending $40,000 and we made 30. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, man.
And then that was kind of like, okay. And that was really the start of the dissolution of all of that.
So do you think, as you're going through all this, like you made a couple different transitions already, do you have going through the back of your mind, like, from what I started at, like your thing that you were reverse engineering for was time freedom, and like, I guess 2 parts of this question, like from the very start, there had to be like some sort of a time freedom, like how many hours per day or per week am I working? And also like a number amount that I want to make in that time frame. Like, did you have both of those in your head?
I probably should have in hindsight, but I didn't.
Okay.
I think I was so like head down, just trying to build that I wasn't really even paying that much attention to like how much time was being spent on things.
Yeah.
And, honestly, man, I don't think that really changed until like we got pregnant with our first. And then it started to become more of a thing that I was thinking about. Like,
it had to make you more aware. Yeah.
Like, where's this thing gonna, where's the kid gonna fit in? And how is this all gonna look like when she is born?
Yeah.
And so I think that was really a little bit of like the wake up, or I guess maybe the initial thing that kind of refocused me on that initial goal and the initial motivation.
That fully makes sense. Were you guys married by the time that she was pregnant, or were you dating, and how long had you been together?
So we met at Time, the jazz spot in Philly. I believe it was 2017 that we met. No, that can't be right. 2016 was.
Oh, don't mess that up.
Yeah, no, it's already messed up. It's already on video. It's a good thing it's like well into the podcast. Kate's probably tuned out by now. So we had dated for like 2 years probably before we had moved down to Charlotte together. But I'm 41, man, and I dated a lot in my 20s and 30s, and so the move would have never happened, I don't think, had we not felt like
you're in alignment and you kind of
like we were going to get married.
Yeah.
I don't think we hadn't had the conversation yet. But I think that we both were kind of lockstep mentally, without having verbalized it yet.
Yep.
That was the intent. But yeah, we got married in 18, 18, and then our firstborn,
brownie points. There you go.
Chloe was born on 9/20/2020.
Okay.
Odd.
Got after it quick.
Yeah.
All right. What did she think? So when you met her, you were wholesaling and you had not started to do syndication yet, right? So what did she think about just in general? Obviously she liked you because here we are, but like of the way that you were with just having an entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that we really like that it was a focal point or a big thing at all. So Kate was, she's a pharmacist. She's a clinical pharmacist. So she's a high performer in her own right. She's an immigrant. She's from Russia originally. So when we met, she was wrapping up her pharmacy degree at Temple University. And then she went right into a year's residency at Thomas Jefferson. She didn't want to go do like the retail pharmacy thing. She wanted to do like in the hospital. And then, so she was super busy that first year. And after graduation, just with residency, we were living in a house that we had bought in South Philly together. And then she moved to Manhattan and did her second year of residency at Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is a phenomenal hospital up in Manhattan. And it's a really, really, really good cancer hospital. And that's Kate's specialty. That's where she wanted to focus, was blood cancers.
Okay.
And so Memorial Sloan Kettering's like top 2, top 3 cancer hospitals in the country. So for a year, we did long distance. So I was doing real estate here out of the house that we had together in South Philly while she was in Manhattan working. So, you know, we both are like work,
Yeah.
both of us.
Yep.
And she still has her job. She is, she works in the pharma industry now. So she is like, she's known as an MSL, a medical science liaison, which like to me coming from the sales world, that's like a pre-sales kind of role.
Okay.
So her job is like meet, create, develop, and maintain relationships with all the docs and pharma, you know, higher ups within her respective territory with anything that her company is working on.
Got it.
To make sure they're up to speed on all the new research and all the new opportunities to partner up on research papers and like blah, 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 blah. So she kind of like warms up for the actual then like commercial salesperson to come in after.
Got it. That makes sense. The only reason that I asked that question, like, did she kind of know what she was getting herself into? Because entrepreneurs, we're like a breed of our own, man. And like, we have a lot of fucking flaws. There's a lot of things that we're great at, but we're also typically pretty crazy too, you know? But you've made that work.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there have been some times, and I'm sure you'll relate, right, where you're transitioning from this to this or whatever, and like there's some light years in there. And
absolutely,
so,
man.
You know, that's a challenge in our relationship, the same way that it would be in any relationship. So, you know, but like she's super duper supportive. Kate is, you know, she's as long as there's money coming in, she's all right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So fast forward a little bit. So you get married, you have your first kid, and you're down in South Carolina and you're winding down on wholesale. What
Ramping
is
up
this
syndication?
Yeah. What is this first deal that you end up syndicating?
Yeah. So, dude, like power of relationships, huge
Massive.
in the
everything.
first deal. So, you know, we're banging our head up against the wall over and over and over again, like trying to develop relationships with brokers and be taken seriously as people who have never done a deal. And, you know, these relationships are very slow to materialize when you're in that space. The sheer volume of opportunities is much less than it is in single family. Like there's a lot less 100-unit apartment complexes than there are 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,200 square foot homes.
Absolutely.
Right? So you have less of an opportunity to like bond, right? And it's super duper competitive. And so we wound up, one of the guys that we met through the RE Mentor program that, I should backtrack. I had a partner in the syndication business as well. His name was Charles. And I had met Charles through the RE Mentor program.
Got it.
This was not just one weekend like the bus tour was. Like this was like multiple weekends. Like commercial real estate and syndication's like a big subject, right? So it's probably like 5-6 weekends, something like that. And so you just run into the same people every once in a while. And so he was getting started. I was getting started. We formed a company together. And I just brain farted on why I decided to tell you that to begin with. Anyway, so yeah, met him through there. Anyway, so then we met another guy named Steve through this RE Mentor program as well. And so Steve was experienced and had already done a bunch of deals and was interested in maybe working with some newer people that needed help. So one of the big things that somebody has to do when they're brand new in syndication is they are very unlikely to be able to qualify for the mortgage themselves, right? Qualifying for commercial mortgages is different than qualifying for a home that you're going to live in. It's not debt to income ratio based,
Really?
at all.
Okay.
It's based on like your primary qualifications for a commercial loan are your net worth, your liquidity, and your experience.
Really?
Debt to income isn't even a factor in any way, shape, or form. So you need to go into deals with somebody already in mind that's going to sign on your loan for you, basically.
Got it.
In the syndication, in the commercial multifamily syndication space, that person is known as a sponsor. So they're going to sponsor your deal for you, basically. Sponsor gets a piece of the deal because they're attaching their name to the debt and taking on risk, right? And responsibility as well.
Right.
So people don't just do that for anyone. Like
Yeah,
you have
for
to have
sure.
a relationship. There's got to be some trust there. And so, I had made friends and made a positive impact on Steve. I had intentionally, leaving an event, I had kind of like already had a bit of a good like relationship starting with Steve. And so when I was going to these events, it was like, okay, I like this person, this person, this person, and this person. We seem like we jived well. I want to continue to develop that relationship. So when I'm going to this next event, if this person, like, what am I going to do? Like, I got to fucking corner them. I got to kidnap them.
Do whatever I got to do to get some time.
Some face time to continue to build this relationship. So he was leaving one of the meetings early. I was flying out the same day as him, but like 3 hours or something after his flight. And it was like, oh, I noticed you got your bags heading to my flight soon too. Like maybe we can, oh yeah, no, that's a great idea. So we shared an Uber and we spent probably like an extra hour, 2 hours together between leaving the hotel, in the Uber, going through security. And then I just like sat around the airport for hours after like, I got to go to my plane. Oh yeah, I got to go to mine too.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm in a rush.
and, but so Steve that was one of the things that helped us solidify that relationship. And shortly thereafter, Steve agrees that he's going to sponsor a deal for us. Love it. Here's his criteria. I want it to be here, this number of units, this acquisition price, blah, 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 blah. Looking. Phone call from Steve comes in. Hey guys, I found a deal. Do you want it? We're like, what? Like I found this deal. I'll sponsor it for you. Like, I don't really want to do it necessarily myself because he had been in the business for a little while. He's like, this is 92 units. I'm only chasing 100. So I'll bring you guys in. You can run the deal. I'll sponsor it. We can use my property management team, but here's your first deal. We were like, yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
right?
dude, totally. Of course. So that was our first deal. Like literally, you want this? Wow. I just got this lead. I'll bring you guys in if you want to help run it. And we were like, yeah, dude, totally. Of course, for sure. And so that was our first deal.
Shit.
And then that wound up then being the springboard that now we could say, like, here's our track record. We just closed this one. We've been looking. Now we're looking for another one, right? And then now we were real to some of these brokers that had been kind of like not really paying attention to us that much before.
That makes sense.
And, it makes sense. Like we weren't upset.
They don't want to talk to tire kickers, right? Yeah.
And we have nothing to show that we're legit. And it was a hot market. So like, why are they going to waste their time picking up the phone and calling somebody that's never going to result in any money or income for them?
Yep.
So,
all right. So 92 units. Where was this property?
It was in the Atlanta market, actually, in Decatur.
Okay.
Yeah. Stone Mountain, Georgia, actually where it was.
Nice.
92 units. C-class property, C-class neighborhood.
Was it fully occupied when you purchased or when you were underwriting? No.
No. It's almost unheard of to have a property of that size and have it be 100% occupied. Stabilized is usually considered 90, 92%.
Okay.
And if you have a property over, let's call it like 50 units, you should never be 100% occupied. You should constantly have a little bit of turnover, because if you don't have the turnover, it means you're not maximizing the income potential that you can be achieving at the property. So turnover is healthy because it shows that you're pushing rents and that you're trying to capture the higher end of what the market will allow you to collect. And so as you're trying to run that property aggressively and find that, like, hug that top of the market number, you're going to have people that just churn. So it's part of the deal.
That makes sense.
Usually we were looking to buy value add. So we normally wanted like 70, 80% occupied. We can fix a little bit of like a management or a marketing issue to be able to increase that occupancy. We wanted to see that we could go in and renovate some of the units so that we could push rents a little bit more aggressively too. But honestly, man, anybody that had success in that like 2012 through 2022 time period, I would make the argument that it was more just right place, right time than anything else, because you had interest rates as a tailwind behind you. You had ridiculous rent increases during the COVID pandemic that are like not normal by any stretch. Like 30% rent increases, like that doesn't happen.
Yep.
And so it was really like the perfect storm of really good like economics to make those deals work really well.
Yep.
And it's not like that anymore.
Right.
2022, when rates spiked, man, that was the end of that like perfect, perfect environment. And now it's almost a perfect environment the opposite way, that are giving headwinds to the syndication space, because not only did you see interest rate spike, which everybody kind of anticipated, nobody really anticipated it to happen as quickly and as aggressively as it did.
Yep.
So most people were anticipating that we're going to get up to that like 6, 7, 8 range, but it's going to take a couple of years. And we were there in like, it felt like the blink of an eye. And so when you underwrote your deal thinking it's going to take 2 years before you're at that interest rate, and instead it took 2 quarters, your projections are off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And then, so now it's like, okay, well, can we make up that difference somewhere else in the deal? Well, insurance premiums spiked around that time. You had some buildings collapse in Florida that was like all over the news,
yeah,
right?
Man.
You had a lot of bad weather incidents. And so we saw some properties, our insurance premium double or triple on a renewal when we hadn't made a claim as customers. We had an insurance premium triple on us, an extra $70,000 a year.
That's big. That's big.
We already pushed rents. Like, where are we getting another 70? And then, so it was it's a combination right now, like real estate taxes. A lot of municipalities are really pushing the reassessments because they know that they can. They've figured out that they can, and it's a means of income for these cash-strapped municipalities. So you've got interest rates spiked, you had insurance jumped, and then you had real estate tax. Those are 3 of your biggest expenses.
Yeah, man.
As a property owner, operating a property like that. And so I just think right now it's a really tough time to get into that space. I'm not chasing those deals at all, because I just think it's too frothy. There's too much competition.
Right.
Buying a 5 cap, it does not sound like a good deal to me. And a cap rate is just your return if you used all cash to buy the deal.
Right.
5%, baby.
Yeah, it sounds not that great.
Not that great. So that's why you're starting to see a lot of people pivoting out of the syndication space. And you're starting to see, and I think like you still have a lot of people that are really gung ho about that space. I do still think it's the safest sector for commercial, because it's like office buildings. Where do you want to be in office or retail right now?
Yep.
Like storage, I think has some attractiveness to it. But if you think about storage when an economy is bad in a downturn, like that's an extra expense that people
Absolutely.
are probably just going to let go of.
Yeah.
Like, well, what am I storing all that shit over there at the
gonna
storage unit?
spend
It's all
money
trash
storing,
anyway. Like,
things that I
I
don't
need to
really
spend an extra
need.
$50 to store my bowling equipment from 30 years ago or whatever.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people that are still very big on multifamily. I still think it's a really great asset class. I just think the timing isn't great on it right now.
Right.
And, you know, there's also an element too, man, where it's cool. There is a neat, like, it's hard to deny that it's kind of cool to chase $1 million deals.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
absolutely. Well, and at the core of it, it's a fucking necessity, dude.
right.
You know?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, housing is a necessity, and that's never going to change, and it's never going to go away. But there's an element of additional risk that I think most people don't really think about when they're thinking about starting a fund or syndicating. And it's that you're now a business partner with all these other people, and you don't, like, how well do you know every single one of the people that are in the deal with you? And all it takes is one person that is unhappy with the way that the deal is going, and now you have like a potential legal liability that you need to be concerned about because of who the hell knows what.
Yeah.
Right. And some people are rational and some people are not, man. Like, there's a lot of really irrational people out there when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. And so you can put somebody in 70 good deals and they make what they were supposed to make, or they exceed the projections, but then you put somebody in one deal and you fall short of the projections, and now you're the worst person in the world, and they're threatening that they're going to sue you. And it's just like, do you really want that additional headache?
Yeah.
It's a personal question.
Did
I
you
can't
have
answer
that
that
happen?
for other people. Our best year ever for acquisitions was 2022, which was the worst year during the time frame that I was doing syndications that we could have, we would have had our best year. And it was just because all those variables changed in the dead ass middle of 2022. And so I'm still in quite a few deals. We've turned over and exited 6 of the 10 that we've done. And the 4 that we're still in are challenging. Like, they're hard because we bought and the environment changed on us. And, when you were buying these value add deals, you had to use adjustable rate. You just had to use adjustable. You couldn't get fixed. And so what people were doing, there's like an insurance policy that you can buy, which is known as a rate cap.
Okay.
So like, okay, I'm buying this deal on a 3-year, with 3-year debt on it. It's adjustable, but I can buy this rate cap for an extra $250K when I close, that says that the rate won't go any higher than 6.75. So even if the prevailing rates are 8, I'm capped because of that insurance policy at the 6 3/4.
Gotcha.
So we bought those, and so it was the best way to try to limit our exposure to some of that stuff.
That makes sense.
But man, like, values are down 20 to 30%. Everybody knows about the Great Recession, 08, 09, the financial crisis, resi, values dropped 20, 30% across the country.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now in commercial multifamily, but most people don't know because most people aren't active buyers.
Well, yeah, you're not in that world.
In that asset class. Yep. And so, it's really a matter of like, and this might even sound bad to a certain degree, but it's kind of the reality is like, you need to survive until the values rebound.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of operators that have lost properties back to the bank because they weren't able to survive. They couldn't keep the property afloat with that change in those variables that they underwrote.
Right. Do you see values rebounding though in a short time frame, like in a 2 to 3 year time frame?
I don't.
No.
I just think that there's too much like uncertainty with everything else going on around the world right now.
For sure.
Between like, we've got so much debt out, the deficits are skyrocketing, and then you've got like a lot of conflict overseas. And so like, there's just a lot of things that are leading to more uncertainty.
Yeah, man.
And so, most of your big money people, like a lot of them, dude, when you have money, like you're not playing the game in the really risky periods of time. You're just sitting off to the side and you're like, well, I'm going to wait until I see how this thing fleshes itself out before I decide what my next move is going to be. It's only like the people who haven't gotten there yet or have nothing that are willing to play in that like weird period of time where nobody knows if things are going up, down, sideways, diagonal, or whatever.
Yep.
And so I think that you're going to see prices will rebound, I think, unless America like collapses, which is totally possible.
It's on the table.
It's probably more possible now than in like the entire time that you and I have been alive.
For sure.
It's more possible that happens today than ever before.
Yeah.
And if that happens, we could all be in really, really, really big trouble. But as long as that doesn't happen, I think it's only a matter of time before values rebound and surpass where they were before.
Yeah.
Because like in order for values to actually come down, inflation has to be solved.
Which probably isn't happening anytime soon.
Not with the way that the government spends money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, not to get political, but the big beautiful bill or whatever that Trump is working on, I'm pretty sure that the deficits get worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we have this big beautiful bill, and he's gonna
just cut all this spending and everything.
He's gonna cut all this spending, but like somehow
and then
we're
increase
still,
somewhere else.
So it's like we're not getting better with fiscal policy at all. We're still running these massive deficits, and so they're either going to tax us, tariff other countries, or inflation. Like that's the only solution there. And the taxes and the tariffs are the most honest, right? So it's most likely, in my opinion, that they'll just continue to run inflation up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I like to think of everything from like the opposite end of the spectrum. And, for most tenants across the country, and not even just tenants, homeowners, right? It's like everybody is feeling more financial pressure now than they probably ever have. And the reality is for tenants, like people aren't making more money, right? It's like inflation is happening and people aren't making more money. And now with the dawn of AI, it's like there's this whole new looming, future in front of us that who knows is going to take away more jobs, right? So people aren't making more money. Cost of everything is going up. So even though housing is a necessity, and if we're talking about commercial assets, 100 units, whatever, it's relative for single family residential rentals as well. It's like when people simply can't afford to pay for their housing anymore. And it's like another piece of that is tenants are always going to pay everything else first before I pay the greedy piece of shit landlord because, I don't care about him, right? I care about making sure that my phone is on and my cable is on. And of course there's food on the table. But all those things are much more important than paying you.
And today, the income requirements, the way that most landlords qualify tenants, they're more lenient today than they ever were.
Because you have to be.
You have to be.
Yeah.
So historically, right, landlords wanted to see like a quarter, a third of income going towards housing. And now, because people need the higher monthly rental income number to make the deal work because of how much they bought it for and what they put into it, they're forced to continue to try to be aggressive with what they can collect for rent. But then what happens? Now you create a collection issue for yourself months down the line, and now you're evicting that person however long it takes.
Which costs a lot of money.
And however long it takes for that balloon to pop, essentially, right, on that person. It's literally a ticking time bomb for every single mid or low income to like mid to low income type of tenant if they're with a landlord that is operating like that. And let's be honest, most landlords have to operate like that because you can't buy deals at $50K less than what everybody else in your market is willing to pay for it. Like you'll never do a deal.
Exactly right.
And so I think that and this actually kind of bleeds into where I was talking about earlier, like being careful with where the real opportunity is. Dude, I think that co-living is going to be like a massive trend. And I think that it's starting now. Like you already see these co-living platforms that are kind of like Airbnb-esque in the way that they're set up, where they're trying to match people that want a rent by the room situation with landlords that have them. It's actually one of the reasons I'm up here is I'm trying to look at any of my existing portfolio to potentially transition them to co-living or rent by the room type properties.
I love it.
Because the problem is just going to exacerbate itself. We already have an affordability crisis, and nobody's fucking doing anything to actually address the crisis other than stating it's a crisis, right? Like
that's right.
Oh, well, maybe what we can do is convert all this old office space that nobody's using anymore to residential. Like, maybe have you fucking priced that conversion out?
So expensive.
Forget about it. The math is never going to work unless the municipalities make that process easier for people to get the approvals to get that work done, right? So it's like,
but that being said, like I love the
that.
rent by the room model also, and I think it's super necessary with where we're at. But again, to the point of municipalities, it's like, dude, it's basically illegal everywhere because zoning doesn't want to allow it. And it's like you're prohibiting people from being able to afford living. Like, dude, if I was a 30-year-old single dude, like, of course I don't want to go rent a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. I don't even want to rent a 1 bedroom apartment. It's like, I would very much rather, just like you said, when you were in your 20s, it's like, I'm renting a place with a couple of other people and everything. Like, why is that such a big red X that it's a terrible thing?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, man. I have no idea other than, maybe it's a quality of living concern that tenants are gonna be in like horrible conditions. It could be like when you think about like Philadelphia, parking spaces are a premium, right? And so you're gonna have 5 different grown-ups living in a 5-bedroom house that are all going to impact the amount of available parking in that area. They're going to draw on the utility. Like, I don't know if it's an infrastructure challenge potentially. But I think a lot of it too, man, is, how excited would you be to live in a nice neighborhood and then have a rooming house?
I think that's your the bigger part of it.
I think that's
honestly
the biggest is that most people don't want that kind of thing because they don't want it in their neighborhood because the perception is that it's a bad thing for their neighborhood.
Right. And I understand, but I don't see a whole lot of other available solutions.
I think you're going to start to see changes in that. There are definitely some areas like, so Pad Split is actually the name of one of the bigger like website platforms. And so Pad Split, they actually have an event here tonight. I'm meeting the Pad Split rep this afternoon at 2 of my properties to walk through with them and like get their opinion on like, okay, you can actually get rid of this living room and convert it into a bedroom, put the wall here, increase your income, blah, blah, blah. But I know that Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta have really big, robust kind of co-living. I shouldn't say big and robust. Co-living is catching on in those markets in a big way. And so I think what is going to wind up happening is that you're going to see these things pop up out of necessity. I think that people are going to run them whether they are allowed or not. And I think you're going to see local municipalities have to play catch up and approve them as time goes on when they realize that they are in fact necessary.
Right.
It's like in California, right? I think it's California where they recently approved like you can just build an ADU in your backyard if you own a home in California in certain areas. Like you can just do it. It's a by right thing where before that used to take like significant approval. Well, they had to because it was so unaffordable there. So now it's like you can buy your home and then build another home in your backyard, and now you can rent the other one out. It makes the math and the financing part easier for people. And so I think it's just I just think it's gonna be something that they wind up having to kind of agree to, just because of the proliferation of it. I think is gonna just be too much.
Got it. Yeah, man, I'm with you. We're at a very weird time. You said it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So pad splits and just kind of maximizing value on existing properties is where your head's at. What about like acquisitions?
Well, yeah, dude, think about it. All right. So like, okay. So a rent by the room deal here in the greater Philadelphia area is going to collect about $2 to $225 a bed per week. Per week. Okay. So if I have a 3-bedroom house in Philly that I'm Section 8ing, I'm getting like $1,800 a month, right? My 3-bed pad split house, I'm getting 900 times 3. So I'm bringing in, what is that? 2,100. That's bad math. 2,700, right? So it's $1,000 more just for a 3-bed. Well, what if that 3-bed actually had a living room that I could convert and a dining room that I could convert? And now that 3-bedroom is a 5-bedroom.
Yep.
I'm bringing in $4,500 a month, where Section 8, that thing would have brought me $1,800. And what was my acquisition and renovation cost to buy that property? Because I'm not buying it in Grad Hospital. Right? Or Northern Liberties. Like, you're buying it in Cobb's Creek, probably. So your all in is probably what, 200,000, something like that, 225, 250 on like a 3 to 350 ARV. And then so you can actually purchase that with private money. You can finance the renovations with private money. You can fully fund that deal with private money. You convert, right? Add the 2 bedrooms. You get the cash out, and you're cash flowing like $2,000 a door, or $2,000 a month on that house.
Yep.
How many doors from an apartment complex standpoint would I need to buy to cash flow $2,000 a month? I'd probably need a 10-unit apartment complex at $500 like, that's a deep, right? Like, I think that math makes sense. A couple hundred a door.
Something like that, yeah.
So my acquisition cost, though, to buy that 10 doors in Philly is like 1.3, 1.5. So I'm bringing in approximately a similar amount of income, but how much more debt did I have to take on to make that same amount of money?
Yep.
Well, would you rather take on 1.2 in debt to you, Drew, personally, to make $2,000 a month, or would you rather take on 200 in debt?
Of course, no brainer.
Of course, right? So my mind recently has not been on more doors, which it had been for years. That was it. More doors will solve everything.
Yep.
Right? Well, what about just better performing doors? And then you don't need as many of them. And then, like, that's really how true freedom, I think, is going to be realized, is the better performing assets and just less of them. Do I want 100 that make me $50 a month? Like, no, that sounds terrible.
Yep. And back to that point from earlier, is that's a trap that almost all real estate investors that I've ever met fall into, because you're around, especially if you go to any sort of mastermind events or anything, right? Because you're around everybody else that are like the big dogs, and you want to kind of do what they're doing. And it's like, well, this guy's doing 300 deals a year, and this guy has 200 apartments. Like, I want to do that too. Without even kind of reverse engineering for what am I doing this for in the first place. But it's so easy to get caught up into it. And usually we don't course correct until we get slapped in the fucking face and realize, why am I even doing this?
Right. Like, wait a second. How did I get here in the first place?
Yeah, man. Yep. Wow.
It's like the GPS took you on the detour.
Ain't that the truth, man? Ain't that the truth? Okay. So
like, I love co-living. I'm absolutely exploring that. I'm not exploring this because I do not want to be the actual operator of it. But if I found a good operator that needed somebody to help bring in the money, like, I would form a partnership with that person like fucking yesterday.
Okay.
boutique senior care. So I'm saying boutique assisted living homes.
Okay.
So like a 4,000 square foot house, preferably one floor, right? Single story rancher with like 8 bedrooms. A senior in an assisted living house typically pays per bed $3,000 a bed on the low end to like $6,000 in the middle. Like I'm not talking high end. I want to be like, if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is like, 1 is like the ghetto and 5 is like hoity toity. I want to be in the 3 and the 4. I want to be in that neighborhood, 3 and the 4. Right?
That makes sense.
Private pay. I don't want somebody bringing in Medicare, Medicaid, any of that shit. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. But because it's assisted living only, you do not need the same degree of credentials and qualifications to run that. Assisted living is just somebody needs help with putting their shoes on, remembering to take their meds, going to the bathroom, eating, right? But they're functional and they're capable of surviving on their own. It's only a few things they need help with. So they're not in a full nursing home yet.
Got it.
It's just assisted living. And so that is literally the co-living or the group home concept, just with a very specific audience.
Yeah.
Right? So boutique senior care homes, phenomenal. Because again, you buy them, it's a single family house that you're just renting by the bed, and you put like 12 to 20 beds in there. Can you imagine? Like you buy $1 million house with 8 bedrooms, you add a few bedrooms to it because you don't need that much common hangout area, right? And now you have 20 beds and you're bringing in $5,000 a month per bed.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It's pretty bananas. Then midterm rentals are starting to really become a lot more popular. And you're seeing, what I'm seeing is midterm rental with a focus on a specific type of profession as being the best. So I rent to traveling healthcare professionals. The people that rent my homes are being displaced from their primary residence because of an insurance claim, and I have insurance contact relationships. Or like crash pads, right? Airline employees need to stay somewhere. So those are all just different plays on the co-living or the group home. And again, it is one house and it just generates more income, right? So those are all like really attractive to me at the moment. I'm not interested in becoming an operator in a brand new like sector of the market. So just like I said with like the senior care homes, like if I had somebody that approached me that ran crash pads really well and just wanted a money partner, like I'd form that relationship tomorrow.
So real quick to pivot on that, because I know that you've raised a lot of private money over the years and everything, like what was your first experience raising private money and how has that kind of parlayed into your skill set that you have today?
Yeah, dude, my first, I had no money when I got started in real estate. I'd been several years from running my business, $25,000 for a bus tour eats into anything.
Man, it's a lot of money.
I had nothing when I started. So when I was doing fix and flips, I was getting hard money loans, and then I was bringing in private money to cover the gap. Okay. So I was bringing them in second position. That honestly, man, I couldn't even tell you how like those relationships were formed. It was just like out at events talking about what I needed, and like this person expressed interest, and you just continue to kind of milk that relationship until something either materializes or it doesn't, right? Yep. And so that was really how, like, just kind of networking here and there, talking to people,
telling them what you do.
That was how I had funded really all of my fix and flips. But when I transitioned to syndication, that was not enough, right? Like when you're buying, because just the cash demand, right? Like I'm flipping I'm flipping 5 or 6 houses a year at like 200 to 250, maybe 300 all in costs for purchase and reno. But then, you know, I'm buying an $8 million deal with a $3 million raise. Like, you need more money, right? But then one of the things I also learned that I didn't think about prior to getting my first syndication opportunity was like, oh, well, I have these other people that lend me money over here for fix and flips. Like, they'll just come over here because of me. There's a more upside over here. So if they're happy with 12 over here, why wouldn't they be interested in 17 over here? Because the structure is different, Drew. Over here, when they're lending on a fix and flip, they're getting a promissory note. They're getting a mortgage position. They have a lien on the property.
Right.
In an equity deal as a syndication, because you're raising equity, right? Like, we're going to a conventional bank for the debt piece.
Yep.
So now I'm raising $3 million worth of equity. Was, you know, equity means like there's no security there. Deal goes belly up, that money's all gone. And so I had to start over essentially from scratch because nobody over here wanted to come over here.
Got it.
And so, you know, was trying just to figure it out on my own for like the first year, and had moderate degrees of success just from just sheer efforting.
Brute force, baby.
Just pushing that fucking rock up the hill. But subsequent deals, it was just not maintainable, you know? Like, we did a pretty decent job on our first raise. We didn't hit $1 million, but I think we landed around like 6 was what we had raised on the first deal that we went into. Well, that was only because we had one guy come in and give 4.
Okay.
So, like, you can't count on the one person coming in and giving you $400K every single time you've got a deal, right?
For sure.
So I spent money again, 20 grand this time, to learn how to like build a platform that attracted private money to me. And so that was then like my role kind of changed within the syndication business, because initially I don't think we really realized the amount of time and effort that the capital raising was going to really occupy. And so I was wearing a few hats, and we were kind of like raising capital. Like, anybody on the team was in charge of that capital raise. And as we started to realize like what a big piece and how much time it was going to take and effort, it was like, okay, we got to reestablish roles here. And so I became almost exclusively capital.
Got it.
And money raising. And so all the content that was being created, the networking events that we're going to, you know, like, that really became me. And I was very careful because I went to the team and said like, hey, listen, we can do this. Like, if I'm going to be the primary person, do we want to market ourselves as the company, or do we want is it me? Like, what is the brand?
Yeah. That's a big question.
And to me, they were like, my two partners were like, we don't really care. And I was like, well, listen, like, I don't think it's fair if it's just me, because then you don't benefit from that if we were to ever part ways in the future.
Right.
And so we did wind up, you know, moving with the brand. We branded, we wound up changing names along the way, but Investor Boardroom was the company that we had came up with. And so everything was branded Investor Boardroom, but I was the face of everything still. So whenever it was like a video or a piece of content or an ebook that was being created, like, my name was attached to all of that stuff.
Yep.
And so, you know, that wound up being a really interesting thing for me to learn. And now I think I am a much better real estate investor because I understand different structures and different ways to be able to take a deal down, where a lot of people just getting into the space are like conventional hard money or private money. And if it's not like boom, 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 it's like, well, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of, I think, pull a couple more levers and be a little bit more creative. And the more that you meet different types of private money people who have different preferences, the more that it kind of opens up the door for you to be able to play like matchmaker, which is kind of fun because you're almost like putting a puzzle together. So, one of the reasons that I came up here from South Carolina, the biggest reason that I made the trip like this week, because I'm going to Italy next week.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like going this week up here in Philly and I'm flying to Italy next week. I'm home for like 2 days before we leave. And I wouldn't normally want to do that to myself, but I had a guy reach out that has a decent amount of money that he is looking at putting into real estate and is very seriously considering being a bank for me on a move forward basis. Allocate X amount of dollars, and I just am able to draw from that whenever I want to. And so that was enough of an opportunity for me to juggle my schedule around and come up here just for that.
No, it was just a podcast. Don't you lie.
But so the interesting thing about this particular guy is like he's got quite a few things going on. He does not need the income at all right now. His biggest interest right now is tax benefits. Well, so I have to structure the deal a certain way for him to get tax benefits, right? Because if you when you're buying your deals, if you're normally just like, hey, I'm going to give you first lien position, you're going to be the lender. Lenders don't get tax benefits.
Yeah, right.
So we have to structure the deal differently in order for him to be able to get tax benefits. And so these are now things that I've learned that enable me to like, okay, maybe I can actually convert this guy into a long-term lender for me in my business because I know a way that I can give him those tax benefits while still being able to do deals that make sense for me. Right? So it's like, okay, I got this person. I know what they're interested in. How do I put something together that takes care of them and then me? Because one other thing I've learned really quickly, people with money know other people with money. Very true. You do well by one investor and you may have 10 other people knocking on your door in a few months. Like, hey, you did good for John. Like, hook me up.
Yeah.
He told me how great you guys are. And you're like, okay.
Yep.
I'm not ready for that right now, but give me a couple weeks and like, I got you. Right?
Yeah. I'll slap something together pretty quick.
So it's been really fun, man. And I just started coaching private money.
Okay.
So essentially helping real estate investors figure out how to consistently raise private money so they can fully fund their deals.
Dude, I love
There's
that.
just so many people now that think that private money is like the person posting on Facebook. And so that's not the private money that you and I learned to chase after. We learned to chase after Sally and Fred, who had money in self-directed IRAs, right? Like that's what we learned was private money. People coming into the space now think that, Jesse, who has Philly's best lending, right? He's private money. Like he is technically private money, but he's professional private money. That's not what we want.
It's different. It's borderline hard money. Yeah.
Right. We want everyday private money where I get to dictate the terms.
Right.
And so, that's the next thing really. For me, it's continuing the buy and holds, figuring out the co-living piece. That's too easy. It matches too closely with what I'm already doing over here to not do that.
For sure.
So that's absolutely happening. I recently launched my first short-term rental, my first vacation rental down in the mountains down in North Carolina. So they call that the high country down there. So we just launched. We've been live for 3 months. So I'm going to see how that goes before I decide if I want to push more chips into the vacation rental space.
Got it.
But essentially that's kind of like the real estate pieces that I have on the board right now. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm doing the coaching over here on the side as well.
Dude, I love that. You've got a depth of knowledge and experience with everything that you've gone through over the years and everything. So here's my question is, do you feel that you are closer to that goal of time freedom today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think has helped you best move towards that?
So, At first you're like just trying to prove that it'll work to yourself, And so I think that the fix and flip taught me for sure that and let me backtrack for a second, because I do think that had I not pivoted, that there's a very strong chance that had I not pivoted out of fix and flips, that I'd be in a position right now where I'm doing 15 to 20 flips a year and am pretty hands off, right? And the only reason that I am not as hands off as I want to be right now is that I, like an idiot or like a new entrepreneur, thought that there would be a different path that wouldn't have challenges, or there would be an easier path.
I fully understand. It's the grass is greener mentality, and we all have it to some degree, especially as entrepreneurs, because we have shiny object syndrome also.
Totally.
So
I hate dealing with contractors. I traded that in for, now I get to deal with really fucked up title situations, right?
Touche.
And so you trade one problem for a different problem that you still have to figure out. There is no place that you're going to go that doesn't have the glass ceiling or the challenge that you smack up against that you have to either break or work your way around to get to the next level. It's always there.
Fully agree.
Right? And so, but I do think that doing these different things has given me a vast amount of experience and exposure that most other people and most other investors don't have. So I think that ultimately it makes me a better assessor. If I don't think that's even a correct word, but I think it makes me better at assessing this move. Right? Because I'm looking at it.
Wisdom.
I'm looking at it from more angles than I think the typical person is looking at something from. Now that can be good and that can be bad too, right? It's easier to overcomplicate things when you're looking at it from 16 different angles. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to say it's a positive, and I'm just going to go with that.
We have to, right? We have to, because it's the first time that you do anything, it's there's a superpower to being naive about something, right? Not knowing what the issues are in a field or, in an activity yet when you start, and just jumping in anyway, head first, and being I'm going to figure it the hell out no matter what. Mm-hmm. There's a real benefit to that, because as soon as you do know, well, I could do this and get sued, or I could do this and it could bankrupt me, or I could structure my financing this way and, whatever, it could end up with a blowout with my lender or my partner or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if you know all of those things, you might never fucking do anything, right?
I do think too that being exposed to different strategies or asset classes or whatever you want to say, I think that it still also kind of shines the light on the fact that most of the things that we wind up getting caught up on up here are really not, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, right? So if you can put revenue in first position, and you can just simply make sure that you've got consistent money coming in,
you can replicate it,
then you can really figure everything else out along as you go.
Agreed.
Right? And I think that so my coaching, right? For instance, I don't have a logo. I don't have a website. I don't have a brand. I don't have brand colors. Does any of that stuff actually really matter in the grand scheme of things? No.
Yep.
Not really. I can sell my coaching without having a logo.
There's actually a lot to be said that, doing things a branded approach might actually be a negative.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I do think that those experiences have helped me as I go into something new to be able to be okay, what are the things that actually really matter and really move the needle? And what else is just bullshit that can wait until later, or maybe never even have to do.
That's right.
Right. And so that I think was really, really valuable. I'm really glad about that. And I wouldn't change anything about the way everything went, because it all leads to me being the person that I am today. Right.
I love that.
So,
What do you think your best like skill or characteristic or trait is as an entrepreneur today?
It's my ability to connect with people. Which is funny because like I don't really like I have like a handful of close friends. Like I'm not like the social butterfly by any stretch of the imagination. But dude, like put me in a room and I will make a good impression on anybody in the room that I want to make a good impression on.
And that is absolutely a superpower.
I'm just good at it. Like, dude, you knock on 80 doors a day for years and years and years and years and years. Like you just get good at disarming people, helping people like chill the fuck out. Like a silly joke at the right time goes a really long way at like disarming people.
Yep.
You know, I go to the grocery store and it's like the checkout clerk is like my BFF by the time I'm done paying. You know what I mean? Like that's just, and it's just because that's who I had to become to get good at door-to-door sales.
Yeah. Would you identify yourself as an extrovert?
No.
No?
No, I think there was a period of time where I convinced myself that I was an extrovert, but no, definitely not. Because given the choice between going to like a big social event or just staying at home, like I'm staying at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even a question for me. Now, when I was like 30, I may have gone out, right? So like life is a little different.
Because socially it seems like the right thing to do, but internally it's not like, you know, you're not wired that way. That makes sense.
And then because I'm good with people, I'm good at explaining things in a way that people can understand it, which is like, I think a big challenge for a lot of people is being able to articulate things in a way that's easy to consume and easy to digest. Like if any of your followers or you yourself, like listen to Alex Hermosi, like he's constantly talking about like, say it in fewer words.
Yep.
Say it in fewer words, make it easier to understand. Like, not to get political here, but like Trump, it's great. It's the best thing ever. It's great. This is great. This is the best. This is what like he's using very, very, very simple and very easy to understand language.
Yep.
Because the easier it is for somebody to understand something, the easier it is for them to then take action on that thing, right? And so I think a lot of us want to fluff up our ego and use big words and use industry jargon because we think it makes us seem like we know what we're talking about. But in reality, it just makes us difficult for other people to understand that aren't in our space.
Yep.
And so like, if I'm talking to a commercial real estate broker that has listings that I'm interested in buying, I need to use all the industry jargon, right? I need to do that. But if I'm talking to the person that just has $100,000 sitting in a self-directed retirement account and is only like partially interested in real estate because they think it's more stable than the stock market, like I'm not going in dropping industry jargon, talking cap rates and terminal caps and all this other shit because they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yep, it's not relatable. You got to know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to and how to connect.
And what
is so much more complicated than it seems, right?
And, dude, what does the confused mind say?
No. Or nothing, you know,
nothing.
Run the other way. Yeah.
Right. And so like, that's another thing that I'm really good at, I think, is just explaining things in a way that people can get it. Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. It's so funny because everybody believes that they're a good communicator, right? But the root of almost all issues in relationships or business partnerships or anything, most of the time comes down to communication. And it's weird to think that we as humans, we've all been talking since we're 2-3 years old. Like communication is something that we all know. Not really, man. Not really.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think like in our world today, it's because most people are nervous to tell the truth. Like nobody wants to hurt somebody else's feelings. And so we've all been kind of conditioned to err on the side of caution and to toe the line of what is socially acceptable to say.
Yeah, and even more so now because of cancel culture, right? You say the wrong thing. And actually that ties into what we were talking about before we started, right? Like with me personally, I said that I've always kind of been a people pleaser, and it was always hard for me to just straight up tell someone no.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of getting easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Just the whole communication aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, like, and it makes sense too, right? Like, and as a parent, you know, we tell our kids this shit like, hey, okay, it's Christmas. If you get something that you don't really like, don't make a big deal of the fact that you don't like it. Say thank you, be appreciative, right? And so what are our kids taught from a really young age? They're taught hide your truth and protect
Please
the
people.
other people's feelings.
That's right. That's right.
And so while I think that is an appropriate thing to teach your child, like, don't be an asshole. I hate this sucks. Because they don't understand nuance the way that we do, right? Like, you can't really tell them the way that they should handle that situation. But the real way that a grown-up should handle that situation is like, hey, I really appreciate you getting this for me. I don't like it. Please don't get me anything like this in the future. Just give me the receipt. I'll swap it out for something I like. I thank you again. I appreciate it, right?
That's right.
Like,
That's right.
Because nobody wants to buy you something that you don't like.
Right. Right. It's a misunderstanding.
Who
it's
wants
a
to be the
miscommunication.
nobody wants to be the shitty gift giver.
Yep.
Right. But then we all have egos, and nobody wants to have their feelings hurt either. And so it's I think learning how to communicate openly and honestly, but also being conscious enough to try to take the other person's feelings into consideration. Like, you can still be honest. You just need to be careful in the way you deliver the honesty.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that.
Don't lie to placate the person's feelings. Like, that doesn't help anybody.
You're not helping anything. Yeah. 2 more questions for you here. So, to the point of kids, right? And tying all the way back to when you were a child, looking at your dad and what he did and what you thought you wanted and what you didn't want. Is there anything that you really want to instill on your kids?
I am probably crazy. I don't want to send my kids to public school. I don't want to send them to private school. Like, I really am trying to figure out how I can run my business and homeschool my kids, because I am very concerned about the world that we are raising our children in right now, from the messaging that they're getting in schools about what is okay, what is not okay. There's a lot of gender things that I don't agree with. And so, you know, man, I'm just trying to be as like open and honest with my kids as I possibly can be. You know, we talk about things with our kids that other parents probably don't really talk to their kids about at the age of 2 and 4. But they're little people. Like, I don't feel the need to shield them from certain pieces of information. They should be able to understand risks that are around in their world and still be able to exist with those risks, right? But I'm super protective of my kids. Like, they can only watch very certain shows on TV, because a lot of, like, your Cocoa Melons are really engineered to literally addict your kids. So there are scene changes every X number of seconds. There are bright colors that are used. They are moving the main character and the background to constantly have stimulus to keep your kid engaged.
Yep.
That is bad for a young growing mind. And I'm sure this isn't correct, so like, you'll probably get commenters out there like, fuck off, I know it's not totally like this. But like, we're almost creating ADD in our kids by like, keep yourself entertained. Like, we don't do that with our kids. We're very protective and selective with the things that they're able to eat. You know, I shared with you that I have inflammatory bowel disease, which I totally attribute to diet. So why would I want to give my kids the things that I think ultimately resulted in me having this condition?
Right.
Like, so we're trying to be really careful there, right? And so it's just, the more that you're aware of the risks that are out there, the more that I think it's within our duty as fathers to try to prepare and protect our kids.
Would you encourage or dissuade being an entrepreneur to your kids?
I think it's going to be up to them, really, with what they want to do. That's a lie. They're going to probably be encouraged to pursue entrepreneurship just because I'm already like, as I'm thinking through my answer, my son Alex is 2. He'll be 3 in July, and the kid loves mowers, loves mowers. And daddy's already talking to him about how he could, if he wanted to, mow other people's grass for them, and they would pay him for it. So like I'm already kind of planting those seeds. But I love my kids. Like they don't have to, and I'm proud of them regardless. Like they don't need to do anything or pursue a certain path in life for me to love and cherish and be proud of them. Like they have that just because they came out of my balls, right? Like
to put it very simply, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think they'll be gently guided in that direction.
And I'm sure that that's because you feel, like you said earlier, you are so grateful for the way that everything in your life unfolded and the person that it's made you today. And you probably, I guess this is one of the things that I struggle with my kids is like, I am also very happy of the person that I am and a lot of the hardship that's made me the person that I am. But that's one of the things that I want to try to avoid for my kids is some of the hardship. You know, it's like I want everything to be perfect for them. I don't want them to ever have to deal with pain and heartache and, you know, all this shit that ultimately I know is what, you know, kind of made me who I am today. So I don't know, man. Work in progress.
Dude, good luck shielding them from it. If you figure out how to, let me know. But somebody's going to break their heart. You know, there's going to be hardship along the way. It's just part of growing up. And you know, because like they're going to have things that they're drawn to. Interests, right? And if they have things that they really like doing, they're going to want to be good at it. And wanting to be good at something, you're going to fail. It's just part of the process. And if they, God forbid, play a sport, like the chances of them being the best person at that sport at every single event throughout their life is like almost zero.
It's definitely zero.
You know what I'm saying? So like they're going to get that at some point in there. It's just, I think the degree with which dad is there to encourage, support, or to try to shield. Right? Like I think we all have realized now, years later, that participation trophies were probably not a great idea.
Not a good thing. Yeah.
Right. So like, even if they were culturally the norm now, I would not allow my kid to keep a participation trophy. Like we would have a conversation as soon as we got in the car. Like, hey, do you think you really deserve that?
Right.
Like who do trophies really go to?
Yep.
They go to the winner, Dad. Okay, well, where did we finish? Well, we didn't win. Okay, so do you think maybe do you think we deserve, like, so these are just little conversations that you can have with your kids, you know? But I think like the biggest thing, man, that I want to try to do with my kids is as I try to impress on them the importance of being a good person. So I am constantly repeating the golden rule. You treat other people the way you want to be treated. Like I'm constantly like that. I've thought a couple times about creating like a piece of wall art that's like the Balsinger family values. And if I actually do that, treat other people the way that you want to be treated, will 100% be the first one there. Right.
You should do that.
Like I just haven't come up with enough other ones that I like enough for it to, you know, validate. But so that's one for sure. And then, dude, the other one is like, I really just want to try to instill in my kids that pursuing easy or happy or whatever is not the path. That the real path is contribution. The real path is helping other people, and that they will find happiness and fulfillment by doing those things, but that pursuing happiness in and of itself is essentially a lost cause, right? And so I think part of that is like we have become such a consumption-based society, and people think that they're going to consume their way to happiness. And in my experience, in my life, that hasn't worked for me.
Yep.
And I don't know anybody that has worked for. So just trying to instill the right values that will help them guide their own life forward.
I
right?
love that.
Like that to me is the best thing that I can do as a dad for them. It's not so much take this path. It's if you choose your path with these underlying principles, it doesn't matter the path that you choose.
That's right.
That's what I'm trying to get to. And that's really why I want them at home with me, is I don't know that a school is going to be able to really do that.
Fair point, and beautifully said. I love that message. So much more to unpack there, but I want to land the plane. So if
you don't want to do this all day?
We could. If you were to give advice to somebody that's 2 years behind you, what would that be?
Don't pivot as frequently as I did. So it's interesting, right? Because I think that in some instances, pivots are absolutely necessary. My pivot out of syndication was absolutely necessary for me, right? And for my investors. My pivot from fix and flips into wholesaling, I think, was an ill-advised pivot. And I think that was me pivoting because I thought there was going to be an easier path, right?
That makes sense.
So I think, like, number one is 18 side hustles is a recipe for failure in 18 new things, right? Like, don't try and dabble in a zillion different things, because
but I thought I should have 12 income streams.
Because you're never going to get deep enough, right? Like what people miss with that, like, oh, the average millionaire has 7 income streams. First of all, they're talking about investment income streams. They're talking about capital gains. They're talking about cash flow from investment properties. They're talking about income from their stock investments, right? But I do like the idea also of multiple income streams, but you don't create them all at once. You create one.
And you make it fucking awesome.
You get that one really cranking. And then when that one is really cranking and your time and attention are no longer required to the level of, right, a certain point.
Of 80 hours a week is no longer required.
So now when you're actually part-time in this thing and it is cranking and you're not required for the day-to-day and you now have more time, cool, go create the second. But what most people fuck up is they have a 9-to-5 that they hate, and they're trying to get out of that 9-to-5. And their recipe for getting out of that 9-to-5 is starting 4 brand new things. Right? You only have like 4 free hours in a day. By the time you shower, shit, go to the gym, eat, sleep, do all the other stuff. So now, instead of 4 hours a day being dedicated to one thing, it's 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. And if the 10,000 hour rule to mastery is true, you've now increased the amount of time, right? Or the length, the period of time that it will take you to get to that 10,000 hours, which is stupid. I think that it makes sense to kind of dabble here, there, and there to see which one you like best, or which one you like,
for sure.
Right? That makes sense. But once you figure it out, cut the rest off, focus on that, and then replace your 9-to-5 income with that, turn that into something that slaps, and then go and plant the second seed and plant the third seed, right? Farmers, if I bought a farm tomorrow, I wouldn't start out with corn and peaches and lima beans, as well as raising chickens and cows and sheep. Like, I don't even want the 3 crops. I want 1 crop. And I certainly don't want crops and livestock, because now I got to learn both of those things at the same time, and I'm just not going to be as good at it.
That's right. It seems like diversification. It seems like being more responsible doing that, but in reality, it's actually hurting you a lot.
Correct.
Yeah, man. That one word, it's so hard for all of us, myself included. Focus, man. It's really, really hard, really challenging. But I got to say, even for myself, like the times where I was the most dialed in, generating the most revenue and the most profit, is when I was super fucking focused. I was not trying to flip a bunch of houses. I wasn't trying to grow my rental portfolio. I wasn't building software. I wasn't doing all these other things. I was just doing wholesale. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Super laser focused.
Yep.
But as time passes, you know, we see shiny objects and everything, and it's so easy to justify and be like, this isn't really me diverting from the course. Like, I already have all these skills and network and connections, and me adding this in is actually like the smart thing to do because of what I already have.
Right.
It's a parallel business, and it's a lie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Beautifully
and,
said.
you know, I mean, like, what's right for one person is not right for somebody else. You know, I mean, like, some of us as entrepreneurs, like, I get bored with things after a while. And that is one of the reasons that I am so prone and apt to pivot. Now, I wouldn't have told you that 5 years ago. Like, this is a revelation I've had about myself recently. But we were just talking about George, right? Before we started recording. And he's been like, does he do anything else besides wholesale?
I think a little bit, but not much. He's pretty laser focused.
Barely anything else.
Laser
and he
focused.
has been crushing Philly wholesaling for like a decade.
Yep.
Right? And so
Something to be said.
here is somebody who is just either has no interest in doing other things and is happy with the fact that he's found a path that really works well for him, or he's disciplined enough to not allow himself to be taken down those other paths.
That's right.
It's one or the other.
Yep.
I think probably. I don't think there's
it's gotta
another.
be. It's gotta be.
At least it's got to be one of those two things, right?
Yep.
So, controlling yourself is always the hardest thing.
It's the worst, man.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
You know, like, so many people want to become an entrepreneur so they can be their own boss, so they can, to your point, have time freedom, be able to create my schedule and everything. And at least in the starting years, you get the exact opposite of that anyway, right? It's like you're grinding all hours of the day. You have no guarantees, and you have the craziest boss of all, man.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Got no problem telling you whatever is on his mind, right? Yeah. Impossible to please.
That's the truth, man.
Yeah.
So you've had a journey, man. And I'm so thankful that you came all the way up just for this.
Just
no
for
other
this.
reason.
No other reason.
This was it.
Yep.
And man, I'm excited to see where you go from here.
Me too. I'm excited to see you continue to grow your business. It's funny, man, like the breakfast thing this morning, I was saying to my wife, Kate, before I came up, I was like, I'm going to go to this breakfast. And I was like, it's funny because like I know all these guys, but I've only met like one of them in person, like twice. And the other guys I've known for probably a decade. I probably know them better and know more about them than like our friends that we hang out with here in the Charlotte area. And I've fucking never met them once.
Which
like
is
I was
funny,
like,
yeah.
I'm so excited to go to this like breakfast meeting.
Yep.
Because I'm gonna finally meet like 4 dudes that I am
I
legitimately
know, yeah.
friends with and know and have a relationship with that I've literally never met once.
Yeah, that's so cool,
so that was
man.
fun.
That's so cool. I'm glad you were able to come up and experience that as well and
me too.
everything. And you always have the open invite.
Yeah.
You are allowed into the
You
cool
are not.
club. Yeah.
Y'all are not
Invite
invited.
only.
Invite
Invite only. Sorry about that. Unless you have a lot of money that you want to fund
There
some
you go.
deals to
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
in the group,
there
you
it
know. If people want to find you, where do they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like social media is a great place to find me. Facebook, believe it or not, there's not that many Adam Balsingers out there.
It's kind of a unique name,
Yeah,
right?
Balsinger's not a super common one.
Yeah.
So I'm just Adam Balsinger on Facebook, and I am the Adam Balsinger on Instagram.
I love it.
Yeah, the infamous the.
I love it.
So I would say I'm pretty similarly active on both platforms, but I do have a community I started on Facebook that is the Private Money Magnets. And so that is an open group that I've created where I'm going in pretty much every single day of the week and posting some kind of tip or trick or something relating to raising private money.
Okay.
And I'm doing bi-weekly trainings, like bigger conversations, hour-long live training bi-weekly.
Nice.
In that group as
and
well.
So that's a free Facebook group.
Totally free Facebook
What's the name
group.
of that group?
Private Money Magnets.
Write that down like I am.
Yeah, so last week on Thursday, I did how to present deals and investment opportunities to your private money contacts, both like the method of communication, how frequently I will send the communication. Am I doing like a formal presentation on the investment opportunity? Is it just here's the info, first come, first serve? Because whether it's debt or whether it's equity, there's different degrees of risk and reward in those different kinds of deals. So I raise the money differently, and the information that's presented to my private money people is different depending on what the structure is as well.
That makes sense.
And so
So this group is for basically anybody that's trying to raise money, whether you're looking for residential, private money lenders, or kind of even syndication, because you have
or people that are wanting to start a fund, because it's honestly it's all the same. It's a relationship-based thing, right? Somebody does not invest with us unless they know, like, and trust us. So step one is, how do you get more people to know you, right? And then now, once somebody knows us, we have to build a relationship with them. Easiest way to do that is email, right? So we put them onto an email drip campaign. They get put in, there's a newsletter that we do, so they get a newsletter. And then, so they're getting hit once a month with the newsletter, and then they're getting drip campaign stuff based on where they are kind of in the process. Step one then is we sell them on real estate and our strategy and ourself.
Okay.
Right? Because what most people screw up here is somebody's like, oh, Drew, I might be interested in investing with you. Send me your next deal and let me know about it. Right? And you're like, okay, cool. I got maybe this person. You get your next deal and then you send me the deal.
And then what? Yeah, if there's
and I'm like, that sounds great.
Warming up.
Awesome. 10%, 12%. That's great. So wait, how does this thing work again?
Yeah. And now
you have to backtrack and teach them the whole fucking thing. And meanwhile, they're not funding that deal that you just sent them, because now they have to they have to actually understand what the hell the process is.
Warm up to the idea.
So normally what we wind up doing is we present the investment opportunity there. Even if they like it and they like us, we still have to pull it away from them and then teach them how this all works, how their money is secured, so on and so forth. So I just eliminate that redundant step. Take that the fuck out of there. Let me know next time you have a deal. You know what, Drew? I'd rather instead, let me run you through what this looks like with like a sample deal. 30,000 foot view. Let me explain to you why this is going to be more stable and more secure, and how I'm going to give you above average returns consistently without needing to worry about the volatility of the stock market. Okay. So let's do a quick meeting. I'm going to explain all this stuff to you, right? So I now get your buy-in from that. That's the initial investor presentation is what I call it. So that's why real estate, that's why your strategy. So whether that's fix and flip, whether that's a fund, whether that's a syndication, whether you're buying marinas, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, you got to sell them on why that investment is good.
I love that.
Then you and why you're qualified. Doesn't matter if you've done real estate deals before. We all should hopefully have something in our life that makes somebody confident that we can follow through.
Yep.
I lost 300 pounds. I was the valedictorian of my school. I went and played D1 sports while I was also a student at, and I maintained an A GPA. I was selected as the employee of the year at my there's got to be something that we can find in our life.
Yep.
And if not, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, you shouldn't be raising money at that point.
Right. So sell them on that. Then I give you an investor qualification form, because I want to know, what kind of money are we working with here? What kind of risk reward tolerance do you have? What do you think a good investment is? What's your portfolio right now look like, and what kind of returns are you getting on it? Because if you're getting 4% on your medium risk investments and 7% on your high risk, high return stuff, I can sell you on 9.
Yep.
maybe I don't have to give you 12.
Yep.
Right. So it tells me more about you.
Yep.
And then now once I get that form back from you, it takes you 5 minutes probably to fill out, which isn't a massive amount of time, but I know that you're more serious now because you took the time to actually fill that out.
100%.
So nobody that is a private lender or private money contact in my world gets any actual deal or investment opportunities from me until I have an investor qualification form back from them.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't even give it to them.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I actually use it as a carrot for why they need to fill it out.
I got some great opportunities.
Hey,
Love
in order
to show
for
them
me
to you,
in order for me to show you
that,
yep, in order for you to be able to see the opportunities that people in the investor club are getting access to, I need you in the club. That this is how you get in the club. You got to fill out the form.
Dude,
right?
That's great.
And then so now, dude, like they understand everything about the process, how their money is secured, what the potential risks are. They know me,
yep.
Right? And they filled out that information. And so now that's when I'm presenting them actual investment opportunities. And then because I've done all that other stuff, they're either in or they're like, well, I'm not quite ready yet, right? Like they still might need to see 2, 3, 18 before they actually pull the trigger.
Sure.
But
they're just kind of in the funnel at that point anyway.
They're closer.
Yeah.
They're closer.
Yeah. And they're getting, dripped on all the time and everything, which is making them more accustomed to who you are, what you're doing, and your track record.
And then the other reason that I do that process too is that protects me in the SEC, in the eyes of the Securities and Exchange Commission, because when you are syndicating or doing a fund and you're pooling people's capital, you're actually selling a security, technically speaking. And so there's rules and regulations for like, you're not supposed to show people that make less than a certain amount of money an investment opportunity unless you know them. So if somebody is not an accredited investor, and here we're getting into jargon, right? Like I said, I don't do.
That's okay.
If they're not accredited, you have to like know them and have a substantive and pre-existing relationship. That's the actual like phrase that the SEC uses, but they don't tell you what constitutes a substantive or pre-existing relationship.
Why would they make it clear? There goes communication again, right?
So I try to really be super duper safe. Like, hey, they met me or engaged with me from this networking event or this piece of content. I have documented the first time that I ever spoke to this individual. We've had 6 different conversations. I did 2 different formal presentations with this individual. They've given me a breakdown of what their portfolio looks like. Like I know that
you're
like
safe.
I'm good.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so regardless, like that, again, like as I get older and have kids and acquire more assets, like not losing them becomes more important.
Yeah, man.
When you were 22 and didn't have shit, it was like, it didn't matter. Right. But now you got to look at things a little differently.
Cross your T's, dot your I's.
For sure.
For sure, man. That's awesome. So everybody has to check out the Private Money Magnets Facebook group. That's awesome, man. I love that. So you said you drop a training in there every week?
Every other.
Wow. Okay. I love that, man.
Yeah. Next
People
one.
Be crazy to not join.
I partially am lying here because there's going to be a 2-week hiatus until the next one because I'm going to be in Italy.
That's okay. I think that's acceptable.
I'm not doing a training from Venice.
But anybody that's jumping on as a result of this conversation with this podcast, they're going to know. Yep. They're going to know. You're going away.
Yeah. So
and they got some catch up to do anyway because there's already stuff in the group.
Totally. And really like, my program is really not for the person that doesn't know how to analyze a deal, right? Like I'm not teaching deal analysis in what I am doing as a private money coach. So somebody should have a pretty good understanding of what a deal is and what a deal isn't. The perfect person for my coaching program has done a deal or 2 at least.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it. That's fantastic.
For sure.
Anything else you want to plug before we wrap here?
No, nothing.
No? Nope. It's been awesome.
Go
man.
Birds.
So glad you came up. Appreciate you. And again, man, gonna have you back once you take over the world.
Deal.
Appreciate you.